welcome everybody to a very special edition of Invent FM. We have our guest, Beth Esponnette, the founder and chief product officer of Unspun. Welcome to the show, Beth.
Thanks, Raymond. Great to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you on and learn more about what you're building. It's very intriguing to me, and I will say that you definitely got me thinking about the definition of additive manufacturing. And I remember when we first met, this was kind of one of the questions. I was like, it's not really 3D printing, but it is technically additive manufacturing. And I love that you expanded my horizons there. So we're going to spend a lot of time getting into the product later, but just to give the audience maybe a quick intro to you and who you are and how you got involved in all of this. I know that you had a, let's say, unplanned, might not be the right word, but entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily your initial goal. So can you tell us how you ended up founding Unspun despite not initially having entrepreneurial aspirations?
Yeah, I guess I never really set out and saying like I want to be an entrepreneur, but I was looking back at this like student interview I did after undergrad, and they were asking me what I wanted to do in the future, and I said I want to run a clothing think tank. And so that kind of like comes around, and it shows that I do really love just like thinking about new ways of doing things and new problems. Um, but yeah, I've run into people, especially in Silicon Valley, who you get to talking with them and hearing about what they want to do with their lives, and they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I like my ears peak up at that. I'm like, this is, oh, I want to know like exactly what you're into, because clearly there's got to be some motivation there, some drive. So I ask them what they want to work on, and oftentimes it's like, well, I haven't found it yet, but I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And to me, it doesn't make any sense, because being an entrepreneur is believing in something so much that you have to give up like a normal way of life to make it happen. So if those people can make it work, like that's power to them. That's incredible. But that's not how it worked for me. For me, it was like seeing this problem of the fashion industry, this mismatch between what we make and what we sell, and how much waste there is, and how the whole supply chain is linear, and it really should not be linear. It's completely broken. So seeing that and getting super frustrated with, I was really, when I started my career, I was adding to this. I was just perpetuating the problem by being another cog in the wheel, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. So I was like, all right, I got to give up like this comfortable way of life and just go for it. So that's sort of what got me into entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love the sense of kind of be the change that you want to see in the world, and having that as the foundation of your drive into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, or getting so frustrated that you just have to try
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I will share that I had I in graduate school, I got a PhD in polymer chemistry, and um, and I will tell you that I thought 3D printing was the stupidest thing in the world in graduate school, and because it's like, okay, well, and this was kind of the peak of the like MakerBot kind of boom, and it was like, okay, like the polymer chemistry part is 50 years old and not interesting at all, and then what can you actually make with this thing is like completely useless and looks like garbage and all this stuff. And so I actually I had a very similar experience to you, where I also was like, oh, the reason that I'm like, and like I think actually I was angry, and I kind of get the sense that you were angry too. And I think it was like I was angry at how stupid I thought the whole thing was. And I realized like, oh, the reason that I like this wouldn't be stupid anymore if the materials didn't suck and you could actually like if you could actually print and so let's forget about printing. I mean, you're additively manufacturing. If you could actually, if additive manufacturing was not a lie, like, right? Like if 3D printing was additive manufacturing, right? And you were additively manufacturing the final product, it wouldn't be stupid anymore. And what's the missing piece to that is the materials. Oh, what have I studied like for the last 10 years? Materials. So I'm totally with you on kind of taking that anger, so to speak, and channeling it uh, into the startup. And the other, sorry, the other thing that I want to share, because I think it's really relevant to how I've advised people and in some ways been advised on like this idea of should they start a company or not,
Mm,
right? Is and to your experience of, saying, oh, I'm meeting all these, Stanford students that are like, yeah, I'm gonna be a tech startup. Like, oh, what's the idea? I don't know, but that's what I'm gonna do. Um, One of the sort of questions that I've sort of asked people, and I'm trying to remember where I sort of originally got this line of thinking, but it's basically like, if you could imagine being happy doing anything else,
right.
go do that instead, right? Like if you could be happy working at working at Apple, making $200,000 a year with a, bachelor's degree,
Right.
like go do that. That sounds great. You know what I mean? Like if you could, and it's like you kind of have to be, uh, I I don't know. You have to like self-select for it because it is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not very likely to be a get rich quick, well, get
Mm-mm.
rich at all, but definitely not quick
No.
kind of game. It is going to be really grueling. And yeah, maybe you could ask the same question if your kid wants to be a rock star or something. You say, really? Is it like, if you could be happy doing anything else other than being a rock star, it kind of takes that same level of passion, right?
I love that. Do you mind if I steal that one?
Oh, please. This is the whole point of Invent FM, is share these things. And I think for me, it's obviously both you and I are inventor entrepreneurs, right? And I think uh not, not everyone that we're kind of interviewing here is both of those things. But I think it's really important for young, and maybe part of what I'm trying to I hope that people listening to this will get out of this is, um, and maybe I'll set this up in form of question to you, right? Which is like, what's the difference between an inventor and an entrepreneur?
Ooh. Well, I mean, they're both about opportunities. I would say an inventor is making something possible that wasn't possible before. So it's like a new opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And an entrepreneur is seeing an opportunity that maybe someone else didn't see or didn't go after, especially in a market. So there is a lot of overlap because sometimes to see a new opportunity, you actually have to create it. So I think that's maybe where our overlap is with between entrepreneurship and kind of inventorship, if you will, is like we have created this new opportunity in the market and now we're going to be the ones to go after it, rather than maybe in academia you're the one to create that new opportunity but someone else might, and then you publish a paper and then someone else goes after it. So that's, I don't know, I guess that's very briefly how I would kind of view it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. I love that. And one of the analogies that Anna Maria Ninu Murcia, who was on the show a few weeks ago, she had this analogy of the invention is like throwing the pebble into the water, right? And then there's like, so that's one role, right? And then there's also the role of kind of like surfing the waves, so to speak. And, you know, an entrepreneur could just be a surfer, or the entrepreneur might, you know, it might be inventor. You know, I would say, okay, I was an inventor, and like now I still do some invention, but I'm also like, I'm sort of surfing my own wave that I made before. And then, and how much time am I spending? We have one question from our live audience from Clay, which I think is related to this, which is, do you think that horizontal hero, do you think the horizontal exposure to other innovators informed your ability and desire? So maybe the way I would reframe it is like, was it important to you to be around those people that you, uh not that there's anything wrong with their worldview, but you disagreed with it, right? You're like, I wouldn't just start a company for no reason, right? um and the mission came first, not, and the entrepreneurship was a means to an end. Like, what do you think that being around those people actually helped catalyze your change?
Hmm. Well, I would say it probably spurred me to action faster. It's like,
Yeah.
well, there must be something to entrepreneurship if people want to do it without really having some kind of drive to begin with. But then I guess the way I would read his question is like, you know, other, maybe this is me wanting to read it a certain way, but like my exposure to other types of people, especially in other fields, has been absolutely the driving force behind this company. Like our company is made up of computational geometrists, mechanical engineers, firmware engineers, you know, materials scientists, business people, marketers. Like, it's just such a
Mhm.
crazy mix of people that there's no way we would have gotten to where we are without having that mashup and having like people butting heads about and getting confused even with the jargon they're using and having to stop and explain it. But you learn so much in doing that and seeing the overlap and seeing the different perspectives. So I think that's super important.
Awesome.
He's clarifying.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Will you read it again just so people,
yes,
they
so
can't all see the
the
questions?
second question to clarify was, do you intentionally look at other areas of expertise or other silos to inspire innovation within your own silo? So yeah, absolutely. So my undergrad was in one field. It seemed very insular. It was called fiber science and apparel design, which seems so specific on clothing. But actually, you know, we're learning anthropology, we're learning polymer science and chemistry, we're learning design and art. Like, it was a very interesting like mix of things. And I think that um, led me down this path of wanting to meet other types of people and get into other types of things. So in grad school did the same thing, where it was a degree between mechanical engineering and the art school. And so I don't know, I just think those boundaries are where the most fascinating like things are, where people maybe haven't, especially as you get into academia, it becomes more and more siloed. And academia is in theory where people are pushing the field the most. So why aren't we mashing them up against each other more? Because we're just kind of like, we separate and we go up higher, but like I think those boundaries are kind of the coolest spots.
Awesome. All right. So with that, I know that you've kind of prepared a presentation to walk us through the origins of Unspun. I'll encourage the audience, if they have questions along the way, put them in the Q&A. We may get to them in real time. We may wait till the end to try to get to them. But yeah, Beth, thanks for putting this beautiful presentation together, and yeah, tell us a little bit more about your interdisciplinary journey into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really fun to chat with you and chat about this. Um, this is what the fashion industry supply chain looks like. It is completely linear. Like, we grow or make our raw materials and they go through a lot of processing. They end up as trash. Like, that is the that is the life cycle of the clothing we make, and actually a lot of the products we make as well. This is one of the reasons why, I don't know if you saw recently, but Nature just published an article about the mass of human-made products has actually exceeded biomass in the world, which is
Really?
mind-blowing. Yeah, this was published on, I think, December 9th, so very recently. And it makes so much sense to me because it's mind-blowing, it's ridiculous, but this is the way that we produce things. So
Hmm.
of course we're gonna eventually exceed what nature does, because nature has a circular life cycle, and so it's
Yeah.
just reusing its things. Whereas we're just taking what nature has made, and then we turned it into something that's just gonna stay the way it is. And so we're just accumulating more stuff. And this is one probably the biggest thing that has frustrated me about the clothing industry. Yes, like we as people buy too much, and we always want the next thing, but I think we can get over that. Like that's kind of built into our psyche. Like I imagine if you're studying like cavemen or something, like they're always going to want the next hunt, or the next like best berries to eat. It's like part of our survival. So I
Yeah.
feel like we at some point you can forgive us or forgive humans for that. But the way that we set up our system to just be linear, I think has been the most frustrating and has been really short-sighted. And it's hard, like it's a really hard problem to solve, but that's what we're trying to do at Unspun on a very long term um,
Right.
kind of view. But yeah, this is from Qantas report. It's a controversial report. We're actually searching for another source for where we can get our numbers on understanding how many gigatons of CO2 per year are emitted by the fashion industry. But this is kind of the best one we can find at the moment. If anyone has any suggestions, we are actively searching for other sources, so please send them our way. But yeah, huge amount, almost 4 gigatons a year.
Wow.
Um, that's close to a tenth of what humans emit per year. A lot of sources would argue it's closer to fashion is closer to 5%, but somewhere between 5 and 10% of emissions are because of the fashion industry.
It's still on the scale of all commercial air travel
Yeah, yeah.
or shipping and logistics.
Mhm.
I mean,
It,
it's massive.
it is, yeah. And it's something that's just kind of hidden from our view, and we're so far removed from the industry, we can just kind of like put things on the curb and say, oh, we're recycling them. But it's so rare to have something that's actually recyclable. As you know, as a polymer scientist, it's extremely difficult to recycle materials, especially blended materials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is really what has driven this company. And so we started to ask questions. This was back in 2013. I started to ask, like, how can we build on demand? Because that's another frustration with the clothing industry, is that we have it set up on mass manufacturing. So we have to make lots of product ahead of time to reach that economy of scale, to make it really cheap.
Hmm.
And we also have to do that very far in advance just to get all the timelines to line up. And then after that's made, then we put it out in the market and we see who wants to buy it. But it's a guessing game, and you're guessing really far in advance. So there's definitely going to be product that people don't want. And there are going to be people who get frustrated with not being able to find what they want. It's not a like one-to-one relationship. So
Right.
that has like boggled my mind too, is like, why? Of course, we know why we do this. We do this so that we can take advantage of cheap labor and actually like create these really high margins for low price points.
Yeah.
But
And the economy, I mean, I think there's economies of scale of manufacturing that people are trying to take advantage of, right? So the
mhm,
unit economics. But then the other piece of it is we don't currently have a global society that charges for the externalities, right? So it's cheaper to have, whatever, a million things in stock at Nordstrom, and then it goes to Nordstrom Rack, and then it might go on a container to Africa or just
mhm,
in a dumpster. Like that part, doesn't cost anything. And you could think about all kinds of different ways of solving for that, from carbon taxes or et cetera. But I think that to me, at a system level, it totally makes sense, which is there's an economy of scale of manufacturing. There's no cost of the externality of disposal, right? And uh, on top of that, our brains are wired to want the next new thing. So those three things aren't setting us up for success.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that's a great point too, that there are no externalities, but it's fortunately changing. Like
Mhm.
France, by 2023, which is only not even 3 years away, is going to make it illegal for any excess inventory to be disposed of. So basically, if you're a vendor selling in France and you have, extra post-its that you couldn't sell, like you need to figure out, post-its are easy to recycle. Okay, you have clothing that you couldn't sell.
Yeah,
You have to figure out a way to dispose of it in like you can't
landfill.
burn it, you can't
Got it.
trash it. You have to donate it, but a lot of places aren't going to take donations, or you have
Sure.
to figure out how to recycle it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, only in the last couple of years, we had, China basically say, hey, we don't want your recycling anymore, right?
Yeah, that was a big wake up call for us. Yeah.
Unaccounted for externality of, it's cheap until the people on the receiving end don't want it
Yeah,
anymore.
we don't want your trash anymore. Yeah.
And during COVID, I'll tell you, Goodwill is not accepting. At least a lot of the Goodwills around me are like, yeah, thanks. Everyone and their mother is, cleaning out their house and sending us all this stuff,
Great condos.
and we're not allowed to have our staff, come in. So no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think it's good if I think these are good things that are happening long term. It sucks short term we're not trying to recycle those things, but I think it needs to be a wake up call for a lot of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so we're trying to say, well, why do we have excess inventory to begin with? Why aren't we just making things for people as they want them?
Hmm.
Which is not an easy thing. You could go back to the 50s and the 60s when like people's moms and parents would make them clothing, but like no one's going to do that anymore because we we buy 5 times as much clothing now as we did 50 years ago. So when no one knows how to sew anymore, and like what they're sewing is probably not going to be the style you want. So there's just so many reasons why that we can't go backwards. So we're trying to look at it from like a tech perspective. How can we bring on demand making for what you want to this century?
That's amazing. Hey, before we dive into the tech, says the focus of Unspun is not behavioral, but I'm always curious, like if you had to pick one behavioral change that like, anyone listening to this, seeing this, video live with us here could do, would it be something like, oh, you know, don't buy new clothes, go to the thrift store or use one of these apps that is reselling clothes? Like what again, I am, I guess, blessed and cursed with not really valuing needing new clothes
That's great.
very often, which but I'm curious, like, I don't know, anyways, like, what would your, like, kind of one thing that someone, anyone seeing this could do that would contribute to the impact here?
Yeah, I really like that question. I think it's so hard for us to change. Like we want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to like, everyone else is doing it. This is the way we've been living for a long time. Like I think yes, it would be great if we all were a little bit more thoughtful about what we bring into our homes and what we consume. But I
Hmm.
think something that would be even more impactful would be for us, rather than taking and trying to change ourselves, can we put pressure on the companies that are and the brands that are out there can we put pressure on them to do the right thing, to change their system, to change the way that they, they only make product and send it out to the world, and it's not their problem anymore. Like, can we
Right.
change that? And I think people have more power than they realize. Like, they're the ones voting every time they spend money on something. So
Right.
can they, yeah,
So
can,
would an example of that be, okay, I'm going to buy Patagonia worn wear, you know, powered by our mutual connection,
oh
versus
yeah, yeah.
Patagonia? Or I that's the only example I know of is Yurtle. But is that, uh, would that be an example of voting? Like, I'm voting with my dollar for used gear.
Mhm. Or even so in a perfect world, we could all afford that thing that was sustainably made and responsibly made and locally made, right? But
Mhm.
that's like, it's only very, very lucky people who have enough money
Right.
who can afford to do that. But can let's say that you shop at Walmart, like, you can still put pressure on Walmart, let them know that you care. They have so much power.
Yeah.
They're enormous. They could be doing the right thing. They could be spending more time. And then they do have research programs. But if we as people start to put more pressure on them, they will prioritize that more. So yes, an example would be supporting secondhand if you can, supporting new take back programs that are actually recycling and not, which is really hard to do these days and something we can talk about later. But or setting or supporting new business models that, like Unspun, that you think might be represent the future of what the industry should be, what the world should be. That would be my
Awesome.
suggestion.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to let everyone know at the end how they can support Unspun. But no, I really appreciate that. I just wanted to, you know, I don't want to make this negative, and I just, one of the things that I've found frustrating in the past is kind of people who get so obsessed with the like tech solution that they completely dismiss the behavioral component of it, and almost say, oh well, that stuff's inconsequential, right? Whether that's like in energy, people saying, oh well, 50% of all energy decisions are made by the government, so you might as well not turn off your lights, or so, something like that. Or it's inconsequential whether you drive a hybrid or not, because it's like the scale isn't big enough. I mean, these are all things I've heard from our community and like clean tech. And so but I think for me in particular with COVID, right? Like, it's like, oh, wow, CO2 emissions are down because everyone stopped flying all over the world. And like, it will be really hard in 5 years from now to like hold that, being more intentional about air travel and things like that. But it actually was a really critical reminder of I mean, in this case, it was forced, behavioral change, but it was a very powerful reminder that like our choices as consumers do matter, right?
Mhm.
So anyways, I just wanted to get to that because to me it's really important, and I could sense like that, it's all obviously important to you. You threw your life into it. But I just I want our listeners and viewers to have some sense of agency walking away from this.
Oh yeah, you have a lot of thought.
And everybody know like these decisions are important, right?
Mhm.
And okay, so with that, let's dive in to the technology and learn more about Unspun.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm actually starting with really, really, as you can tell, I don't even know why I'm prefacing this because it's so obvious, really low level, like kind of embarrassing prototypes, but just to show you like how things can start. And now they're at a level that's way beyond me, which is, I think, really exciting. But
Beautiful.
um, all right, so this idea of like what has done the best, what like company or thing or entity has done the best with thinking about these two questions in the world, and that's absolutely nature. Like, nature builds on demand as it needs it and has a circular life cycle. And it's just, we've definitely messed with it as humans, but without us getting in the way, it works so perfectly. And so a lot of the like exploration that I've done pulls in the concept of growth and decay that nature does so beautifully. So this is admittedly is more of an art project, but it's still an exploration and like how can we think about growth as a way of producing things for us. And had some fun snails help me with the process, but this is like a chia vest that was grown to kind of create this fashionable item. That fashion doesn't last that long. Why do we make certain products that are, especially, they're very fashion sensitive, very trend sensitive? Why do we make them last so long is like a question that I was kind of asking with this. Because one thing when we think about with sustainability is like, let's go for longevity, let's make something that lasts forever. But I think really we should be thinking about in a trend sense, or how long, a usage sense, matching the longevity and the life cycle with the expectation for like how long someone's going to actually want to use it. So
Yeah, I love that. So I have to worry about that when I'm 3D printing airplane parts, but we probably don't want the thing that lasts.
how long do
Yeah,
you need those to
ski
last?
jacket, right?
Yeah. Do you need those to last a very, very long time?
Yeah. Super. I mean, yeah, the weathering and durability is really, really critical for anything. Well, anything that moves and anything that's carrying humans, for sure, from
Yeah.
both a safety perspective and and like total life cycle, uses of the thing. So can I ask, what do the snails do here? They showed up for the party. They were part
Yeah,
of
they
the.
were just in for the fun.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So it grew into other products as well, but like, these are not things that are commercializable. They're more explorations.
Hmm.
But like as I go through here, you'll start to see things become more commercializable. And that pulls in the question you just asked on like, you might have the right answer, but if no one's going to adopt it, chia vests are not the right answer, but even if you had the right answer, if no one's going to use and adopt it, it's not the right move. It's not going to solve any problems.
Right.
So a lot more exploration with like, how can we bring this into everyday life.
Okay.
And so some more exploration here with thinking about growing crystals, and again that idea of being able to build something as you need it, but then you can dissolve it as you.
Is it like rock candy? Is it sugar? What is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's aluminum sulfate, but
Oh,
so you wouldn't eat it, but but it's very similar in concept.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Awesome.
and then this kind of brought me into, again, the idea of what nature does, where it's just, we're just working with building blocks. And so when we think about the recyclability of clothing today, you can recycle in a few different ways. Chemically, mechanically are like the main ways, and they almost always lead to a downcycled product, because the building blocks aren't meant for being broken up. Like, there really aren't building blocks. You have fibers that are twisted and spun into yarns, and then those are woven or knit into final products. But then to break those down back into their original form, you usually have to like dissolve them, or you have to like rip them up.
Mm-hmm.
And ripping them up is a very, very common way to do it, because often you'll have a blend and you can't treat the blend the same way, and especially if it's a synthetic and a natural fiber at the same time. So then when you rip them up, you're just making those fibers, which were a certain length, you're basically cutting them in half and making them shorter, which is just damaging them. You're never getting a higher quality yarn by ripping it up.
Yeah.
So so that in itself just makes for a really difficult, like, how can you think about building blocks in clothing that way? So I went very, very like high level kind of uh, kids building blocks kind of concept here with, can you just create things that might act like elements and build them together and into a form that might be fashionable at the time, and then maybe the next month you want to build it into something else. So again, fun art project, fun like exploratory thing, but it did
Are
lead.
those shells? What are the on the right.
So these are actually, so I used molds and I poured silicone into the molds, and then there are
Cool.
magnets in the silicone. So they're inspired by like barnacle shape kind of things and like
That's amazing.
Hanoi kind of structures. Yeah. Yeah. It was really fun.
Can I
Um,
buy those on the website?
yeah, they're really heavy though, because they're
Ah,
silicone. Silicone's so heavy, but yeah,
shrink.
someday I'll let you know. This was same concept of like building. We talked about additive manufacturing previously, and like 3D printing is like understandably the most famous like thing within 3D or within additive manufacturing. But we define it as just like building from nothing, like having no waste and building from nothing. This one this is actually hot glue. This is like made,
Really?
yeah. This is
Kind of a really tiny nozzle?
yeah, well, so I used water and a heat gun, and the heat gun actually had like air flowing through it, heat and air. So I was able to hold up a stick of the hot glue, use the heat gun, and it would
That's
make
amazing.
it super tiny. I mean, this is not like fiber thin, but it's almost as thin. And using the water made it solidify it instantly. So it was just like this really interesting like mat of material.
Cool.
Yeah. Um, Again, not commercializable, but like inspired the next project. It was just about like getting from one to the next. Oh, this is probably the closest thing to 3D printing. Um, so similar idea with using water, but you know this with having structures and needing to like give support in 3D printing. So I used the water as support and would pour like a millimeter, and then would use the hot glue, and then would pour another millimeter, like to give it support as
Yeah,
it built up. And again, embarrassing that like I'm using hot glue here, but a fun like exploratory kind of idea on like how we could build the clothing that we have.
I love it.
All right, this starts to get into what we do at Unspun today, which is use customization. Because if
Mhm.
you're going to build something on demand, if you're going to build something for someone right when they're standing there, they're there, why don't you make it exactly what they want, exactly for them? So do I have any pictures here? Oh, I don't have any pictures, but we this was getting into my master's program. So starting here was the master's at Stanford, where I got to take these two questions that I had, and I got to apply them to a class and like invite other people to work on it with me, which was a blast to be able to bring other people into it. And where I kind of learned how important team is and like who you're working with. But here we were thinking about, how do you build on demand? How can you make it custom? So we wrapped our feet in molds, and then we were able to make molds from our feet, and then we wrapped this, again, hot glue, kind of cheap. We're very cheap, I guess, on the mold, and made ourselves shoes. So those are my shoes. I actually wore those for a week. They lasted a week, which is, I don't
That's
know.
amazing.
Yeah. Not good against nails, but like could handle most everything else. Yeah, so that was like a fun exploration. I don't have any pictures, but this was a picture of us at the farmer's market. And this is like a plug for get yourself out there. Like, don't be embarrassed. You're
Did you
gonna
try
make
to sell these, or you just wanted people to wear them?
we just wanted to get people to put them on. Like just getting people to stop and put on glue shoes was hilarious. I
Yeah.
did like laugh the whole time. But yeah, just for research, like what which things do people what do they want in a custom shoe, like what's interesting to them, where would they wear them, just getting feedback is so valuable. And like, yeah, it's embarrassing. If I were Elon Musk, I probably wouldn't be standing at the farmer's market, but like as the nobody, it's such a good learning experience to get out there and just get feedback. And I think that's I think that entrepreneurs, especially early stage entrepreneurs, don't do enough of, is just like put yourself out there and just
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Well,
It's,
at least for this version of Elon Musk, the SpaceX one, I think his version of this, and anyways, this is the version of the story I know. It might not be 100% correct, so someone can fact check me on it. But my understanding is at SpaceX, he wouldn't take anyone else's money until he had successfully launched a rocket. So his version of it was paying with his own money to blow up 3 rockets. Right, so it's like it's the hot glue gun version of it, right? Like his feedback came from the universe. did
yep.
the thing did the thing explode or not?
Yep. Oh, I love that.
So I think you're definitely, different category of project, but I think the thought process is exactly the same as at least how SpaceX got started.
Yeah, that the learnings are so much, they're worth so much more than the embarrassment and the like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it. So, okay, so this starts to get us into understanding that this, there is something here, but that hot glue is not the material, and that probably even 3D printing is a no-go. Like I don't have the photos here, but we had an FDM, and we had access to an SLA printer, and we would try new things like, can we get something that's fiber level from a printer like this? And we were really running against a wall and we were printing cool stuff, but it always ended up being like chainmail, and it was
Oh
hitting,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, hitting that problem where, again, adoption is just not going to be there. Like, yes, you can 3D print a piece of clothing that feels and looks like chainmail. That's plastic,
Yeah.
and you might get like a news article out of it, but no one's wearing it on the street. It just actually hurts to sit on. So like,
Yeah.
you can stand in it, but you're not going to sit.
Right. Well, and the scalability aspect of it, like one of the coolest, have you ever seen the video of Nervous System, the printed dress that
Yeah, I
Shapeways did
love
for
it.
them? It's like it's so cool. It's like from the design perspective, it's like mind blowing, right? Like they
Mhm.
design, what do they call it? The kinematic dress, all these pieces of like pretty hard plastic, then are connected and linked together in these small enough units that they flow. And then they figured out how to like computationally fold it and print it in a block in the SLS printer. But then the thing that I couldn't help, as a 3D printing entrepreneur and like someone who cares about the polymer piece of it and the manufacturing piece of it, like in the video of this, I mean, we'll have to link to this in the show notes. Literally, they've got like a team of technicians that have to like excavate this
Oh my
thing
gosh,
from the
yeah,
block
all the
of the
little
SLS
holes.
printer, and they're using like a toothbrush to get every little, carcinogenic piece of nanoplastic out of every crack. And you're just like, wow, this is, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, Nervous System is a huge inspiration to me, and I'm certainly not dissing Shapeways. They're like do something really cool. It's just like, but like the brutal reality of the manufacturing situation is like, yeah, you're not going to sell very many of those.
Right, right.
Um,
And it still feels like plastic. I mean, it is such a beautiful dress though, and I love what they're doing, especially from like a mathematical
oh
standpoint,
man, it's really
like the
cool.
computation.
The generative design aspect
Mhm.
of it, they are really top notch.
Yeah. Yeah, so we decided not that direction.
Cool.
And we and we said, but wait a second, like there's nothing wrong with yarn. And yarn is, people love wearing yarn. Like they
Hmm.
wear it in a lot of, we're all wearing it in different structures and different wovens and knits, but at the basic, like we just, everything we wear is yarn. You
Hmm.
might have something that's felt, and that's lots of pieces of fiber that are intertwined. They might be like chemically or mechanically bonded, but for the most part, like that might be like a fedora, but for the most part, you're really just wearing yarn. And the waste issue, there's no waste issue with yarn.
Yeah.
It's the waste with cut fabric and with the excess inventory. So we can still solve those problems if we treat yarn as like the element. Like yarn is our basic input, and we're going to get a product out of it. And then at the end of the day, why not go back to that yarn stage? Because especially this is like when we start thinking about 3D printing or like additive manufacturing with yarn as the input. So we tried to synthesize, we did synthesize nylon. It's pretty easy to do that, but like tried to do it as we were kind of building clothing. And I think eventually Unspun will go after that, but it's not, it's like a nice to have. It's like kind of cool, but it's not
Mm.
going to solve any of our big problems. So then we again went back to yarn and said, how can we build on demand? There was and still is a company called Software Automation they're out of Georgia Tech. And they're basically trying to replace someone sitting at a sewing machine, automating the process of production. And what they're doing is super cool. It involves so much computer vision though, that it's taken them many, many years. And the products that they create are extremely basic, like t-shirts. They're on bath mats right now. So like they've been on bath mats for years. It's just it's tricky, like human manipulation of things, especially of things that are so hard to predict, like fabric. Like you hold up a piece of fabric and it just drapes. It's not like, a car chassis, you hold it up and like, where every point in space is. Like you can model that. You can't really reliably model a piece of fabric and expect a robot to sew that in a good way. So we said that's a cool way to automate, but like, isn't there a better way with yarn? And so that's what pulled us into 3D weaving. And
Whoa.
we feel like, and so far this has been true, that if you hold up a piece of yarn on either end and it's taut, it's again or it's acting like that chassis, like where every point in space is. So you can manipulate the yarns and you can get that final form that you wanted. But it's
Yeah.
just a lot of moving parts is kind of the challenge.
Yeah, it's so funny as you say this. I'm having like flashbacks to like uh I feel like this tipping point in terms of the complexity of the problem was also the tipping point in which I went from getting A's in physics to getting C's in physics. It's like, oh God, like now it's like a continuous weave in many dimensions that can, drape and all this stuff. But it's just like, okay, like, just mathematically, right? Like, what's the dimensionality of the problem with a fiber, right? What's the dimensionality of the problem with, woven fabric, right? It's totally different.
Yeah, completely different. Yeah, much more complex. So we said, let's simplify this in one way and make it it is complicated in other ways, but just from a material standpoint, much simpler. The hard part is the control system, but we're doing it. So it's getting
Well,
there. That with these first ones, so some of our first prototypes they don't involve robots, they don't involve actuators or anything. It's just like us acting as if, because sometimes anytime you start something, you got to prove it to yourself that it's possible before you jump into it. So we would just pretend that we are different robotic arms and pieces. That's actually
just
what we did.
follow the algorithm kind of manually.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this one was like the aha moment, like this is going to be possible for us, when we had actually it was similar to this, but this was one of those three doodler pens. And like, you must know a three doodler pen, right?
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. And so we didn't need to use that, we could have used yarn, but like just the idea that we had two people. One person acted like a stepper motor, just like moving the wheel like one step. Yeah. And the
Okay.
other person was like a solenoid with a three doodler, just like moving back and forth, like as this thing is spinning. And with just
Oh,
those
so
two
they're just
people.
going like this and the other person's going like this.
Yeah. So they were just like, the person with that solenoid actuator was like just going back and forth over the nails as the other person's spinning. So you got it to weave. And so like no one's going to use nails in a woven product, but it got us to that next step of saying like, this is possible in 3D space to be able to manage something like this. And yeah, that's
Cool.
another thing that I think, you know, when you jump into a problem, you just need to like just prototype it with some just pipe cleaners and whatever you have, because you're going to run into things that you maybe didn't think about in your head or think about on paper. So that really helped us to do this. And so yeah, this one was a joke. We were just like wrapping, very very similar to the idea here that you're like wrapping a form in some kind of material. And yeah, this was just, I don't even remember what polymer we wrapped it in, but we decided to trash this pretty quickly. It didn't go very far. But honestly, like just a few months ago, Adidas released a project that's like not that much more advanced than some of these things. And they do it for the press, and it's just, I don't know, anyway. So then we start to get more advanced in like the controls and what we can get out of our machines. And so some of the more recent ones, like our last one, we were getting panels, and the panels had dimensionality to them. They started to be woven, and they no longer were flat sheets, but they were woven pieces that had shape to them, as if you're wrapping them around the body. And our latest prototype, which I can't show you, but I can show you like a little tiny little snippet of how many yarns go into this thing. That's like one side of it.
Whoa.
Yeah, we have thousands of yarns going into the machine, and you know, the output are basically pant legs, and we're starting to create 3-dimensional products with this. And stay tuned, everyone, for next year. We're going to have a big launch with this machine and our first commercialized products.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So then, awesome. So, and it's denim technically, or I'm ignorant about all the different correct.
Yeah.
Once you take the the polymer part out and use the colloquial fashion words, I'm
No
blissful.
worries at all. Yeah. So denim just speaks to the type of fabric, and jeans are the type of product. So
Got it.
denim is a twill. So it's a woven structure that basically, it kind of has like an offset to it, sort of like when you are stacking bricks, you have like kind of an offset. Similar thing there, where you know the yarn is jumping over other yarns in the orthogonal, or like the perpendicular direction.
Okay.
But then so you have that on one yarn, and then the next yarn is not going to do the same thing, but it's going to skip one. So you start to get this like kind of stair step pattern to
Well,
it.
then I guess then the other question is, I'm just trying to think through the whole fabrication process. So then does the machine make the whole thing, or it makes the legs and then those have to get assembled by a person, and then ultimately that will also be a different machine, or
Yeah, good question, because we're kind of diverging in two different directions. So
okay.
yeah, definitely building a machine in the future where that will kind of take those two legs, because you're right, it's just legs right now.
Okay.
Take those legs and join them together. In the knitting world, you would call that linking. So it's closer to robotics than our current machine. Like our current machine is more industrial machinery than robot. Like it's really executing on something that we tell it to do, but not necessarily in a robotics kind of way, which is kind of hard for me to explain. But
Okay.
and then so that's one direction, is like, but then you might start to bring robotics into the finishing touches, which is actually kind of, it is much easier to do that. Like have a robot add like a button, for example. That's not hard. It's actually creating the structure that's the hard part. But we're also looking at other types of ways. There are many other ways in weaving that we could be making the full product without using joining. So you can actually weave the whole thing in one machine. We just,
Cool.
as you can tell by like the tiny little steps of iterations in these machines, we're doing the same thing with our current machines. It's like, let's take on 3 variables, like 3 new aspects or subsystems on this machine. And then the next machine, let's take on 3 more. We can't,
Got
there
it.
are probably 40 different things that we could be doing, but we just have decided that we'll only take on a certain amount with every machine.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. And you can't solve all of it all at once, right? So I love your process of breaking it down.
And even solving a few is it's crazy hard. But
Yeah.
yeah. So today we previously talked about like commercialization, trying to get out there as soon as possible.
Mm.
So while we haven't commercialized on the hardware and the outputs from the hardware specifically, we have commercialized on our other technology, which is software, and software moves so much faster than hardware, as you
Yeah.
probably have experienced.
I've learned
So
that the hard way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
hardware moves faster than chemistry.
Oh, is that true? Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. Well, okay, I guess I'll appreciate that then. But yeah, with the software, our tech takes in an OBJ file and outputs a pattern that fits that person.
Got
So
it.
we've used a few different. We use like 3D modeling in this versus the industry that has used grading systems. Grading is like taking kind of rules that have been passed down over the years, and like for every, you take a measurement on someone's body, you take a series of measurements, and then kind of build out in increments what that size set should be. And so you end up, people aren't standard, so nothing really fits perfectly when you do it that way,
Mhm.
because yeah, everyone has their own nuances, and a body is a very complex shape, and
Yeah.
grading just makes a lot of assumptions about how we should all be like growing our bodies should be. So rather than
Sure.
doing that kind of 2D, we build in 3D. So it's kind of like surfacing or building around a 3D person. And then over the past 6 months, we've been using machine learning as well, just because we have thousands and thousands of both people's avatars and their fitting pants. So it's
Yeah.
given us a unique perspective on what fits and what preferences people have beyond just, academic fit. So.
Right. That's amazing. And actually, can I ask a question? So I remember when we first met, I was actually asking you for advice on 3D scanners because I had been really disappointed with all the ones that we bought. And I remember you were using kind of a off the shelf, like full body scanner and having people come in. So I'm just curious, did COVID push you guys to shift towards the at-home scanning, or did you already had done that before we all locked down?
It
Because it's
was
obviously the better solution. I'm just kind of curious if that was a unintended acceleration of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, COVID has been awful for the world. This is one tiny silver lining, has been that it's expedited our development of phone scanning. We plan to release it in 2020. Like I remember in January we had a meeting, Walden, Kevin, and I, and we sat down. We're like, okay, we're gonna do phone scanning this year because it's gonna help us scale. We're gonna reach so many more people this way.
Yeah.
And we were planning to do it by the end of the year, so around now. But yeah, COVID hit the US in March. So we launched it early June. It took about 6 weeks to get it off the ground. We worked with a group called In3D. We love their technology. One
Mhm.
struggle was always going to be or has been the experience. And launching something in 6 weeks means that you take whatever is there and you make it work. Like
Yeah.
there's not much you can do beyond that. So considering all that, like we've been super excited about what phone scanning has brought for us. Like we've reached people all over the world, and um, from a tech standpoint, it works super well. The hard part is is that customer experience. Like we're no longer hand holding.
Yeah.
Now people are having to figure out this new technology in their homes. So that's like our next challenge, is to take that on.
Yeah. That's really cool. Way to go.
Have you ever scanned at home?
I have a I don't know, this year's iPad Pro, and I specifically got it because of the added LiDAR and the multiple cameras. It's supposed to, so it's got like this built-in measure utility. But I will say I have been, um, I think the hardware is there for people to write really good software for it. And obviously you guys, you know, worked with experts in this to like roll a professional solution. So I guess my short review is I'm still waiting for someone to make a good 3D scanning app. I think I bought every single one in the App Store a few months ago, and they're all terrible. And so maybe it's just that no one's written a nice one. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. It's an area where I've been continually disappointed, but I think your example, like the fact that you can do what you're doing and showing in this GIF, gives me hope that there really is kind of light at the end of the tunnel in terms
Yeah.
of, because the scan fit print has been that is like a category of business model that a lot of people have had that vision for a long time in a
Mhm.
lot of different areas. And depending on what it is, right? Like, so we work a lot in dental products, for example, right? Like, scanning your mouth, making the dental plan, all that stuff. There's a whole economy and ecosystem of softwares that go into fixing the meshes and filling in shadows and things like that. So there's a lot of like uh, behind the scenes kind of stuff that we don't need to talk about here that I'm sure you guys had to slog through to get this to work.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think, I don't know. Would you agree? I mean, I guess my assessment is kind of like it's there, it's all there. It's just not really like very convenient.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So we,
actually, I'm curious on the length scale of genes. Do you find that the accuracy is okay?
mm, so we are only allowing, we don't do any photogrammetry. Like photogrammetry doesn't work for our purposes.
Okay.
So people have to either come in for the infrared in person,
Or
or
have
they
LiDAR on the
do
phone?
the infrared on their iPhone 10 or higher.
Yeah.
And we have, I would say, what's our fit rate right now? 92 to 93%. So we're getting 7 to 8% return rate, but often it's just because, they didn't know what they were getting, or
Right.
there was something like that.
Yeah.
So it's been really good, but um, we need like millimeter. They will say sub-millimeter accuracy. It's like millimeter, 2 millimeter
Oh
accuracy.
yeah, the measure app built into the new iPhones and iPads is here, like do it on a business card or something and be like, oh, it's 3 inches by 2 inches. You're like, oh great, that's really useful. Thanks. Like the precision is not quite what I was.
Oh, no. But
Uh,
is that using the LiDAR? Is that using the,
yeah, no, the built-in one has the LiDAR.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we actually don't think I mean, first of all, the LiDAR is on the wrong side of the phone for our purposes. We need it to be front facing, where facial recognition is. It's the same infrared
Oh wow.
scanner there. So the LiDAR is not useful to
Oh,
us.
you're using that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, LiDAR is not actually high enough. It's not accurate enough for us, for our purposes. So yeah, I don't know if you haven't used the facial recognition, I would
All
highly.
right, I gotta look into that. You've taught me a lot. This is
Yeah, I mean, what kind of expectations, or like what resolution, what accuracy do you need?
well, I don't imagine like waving one around in my mouth because for dental products you need to be,
Yeah.
it's gonna hurt if you're off by more than 150 microns, 100
Mm,
microns, it's gonna push, right? So
yeah.
that's really tight, and that's a whole category of product, right? Um, but yeah, I've just been thinking about whatever, if I break something, could I scan it and bring it into CAD and put a replacement part, or could I don't know, scan my wrist and make a cool bangle or something, so that those don't need to be crazy.
Yeah, I think for those you would be good with this facial recognition, with the structured light.
Oh,
But not for teeth. I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
You can try it, but it sounds hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, tell us more. This is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have some big things coming for this specifically. So you can see in this GIF here that we have different options for jeans. This comes down to the on demand. Yeah, this is that first question: how can we build on demand? And since we're building as someone's purchasing, they might as well, again, get that scan, get it perfectly fit, but then also choose what kinds of jeans they want.
Right.
And at the moment, people can do that. But if you go to our website, you don't see the jeans changing. Like you only see some other person in a similar kind of jean. Like it is the same style, but the options aren't going to be exactly what you
Got it.
chose. But here we're starting, this will be in about 2 months, we'll implement our customizer. So they're going to be many thousands of options, which is a little overwhelming. So we'll start with something that's
Yeah.
maybe like a lookbook or something that brings someone to as close as they want to their product. But some people actually do like to start from scratch and then go through all the different
Yeah.
options.
So that's something I'm really curious to learn from you. Obviously, don't need you to reveal the behind the scenes tech of the customizer, and maybe we can chat about that offline. But what I am, one of the things that I kind of see coming down the pike, um, so to like, what is our biological wiring, right? We talked about, we want the new berries, we want the new thing, we sort of want the thing that the person who we see as high status has, but we don't want too many other people to have the same thing, because then we need to feel special. And I'm curious, do you have any sense of, like, in this world of like truly like market of one, mass customization, personalization, you get to put anything that you want. You could have one leg be a capri and one leg be long. You could have, whatever, one be a drop crotch side and one be, I don't know, skinny jeans. I don't, I'm like, is there like too much choice for the consumer? And do you have any sense of how, I'm just imagining you get this cognitive overload, analysis paralysis, where the person just like gets so exhausted trying to design the perfect pair of jeans that they can't even buy it at the end.
Yes, that is absolutely a problem. Yeah. We generally, I don't like to generalize too much, but like for this purpose, people are either in one camp or the other. Like they
Okay.
come in and they know that they've always wanted a special like fray hem, or they know that they've never found that perfect like rib cage super high waist jean before. Like there's something they've been after their whole life, or the last few
Yeah.
years, that they just haven't found. And like, yes, those are the people who know what they want. And then actually most of our customer base is more in the camp of like, I don't know what looks good on me and I don't know what fits right. And please make me something good, and I don't have to try it on, and just send it to me and I know it's gonna be perfect. Like that's most of our customer base. And I don't know, I kind of love that. It's just so easy and we know it's gonna be great for them.
Right. Well, I love that I mean, that to me is so amazing. You can kind of serve these, I guess I would call them like psychographics, right?
Mhm.
Like, and what's so cool to me that I'd never thought about before is, the first thing that came to mind when you just said like, just give me something that fits and I don't want to have to try it on, is kind of like the like Soylent camp, right? Just like, just give me the thing in the cup. That's what I'm supposed to have to fill my body. I don't want to think about it, right? But
Mhm.
then you also can have this kind of like artisanal, like expert kind of gourmet psychographic, right? Where they're like, I've been on the hunt for this thing that doesn't exist and I can now make that. And so I love that. I never thought that you could serve both of those psychographics with the same technology. So
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Oh my gosh, Soylent. Yeah, I had have a co-founder who maybe lived off Soylent for a little while. I don't know, died off Soylent almost. I don't know how you would phrase it, but he's alive now still.
That's
Um, but yeah, I think this brings up something that's been a huge challenge for us at Unspun has been focus. Like
Mhm.
there's so much possibility we see, especially like having a retail store where it's not as active right now because of COVID for a very good reason. But before COVID, we would just have people come through our store and you'd meet your customers and talk to them and they'd vent, they'd sit down with the coffee and talk about their struggles with finding fit and, talk about their lives. And it was so awesome to be able to do like interviews just daily. But it
Mhm.
also was very distracting because every new customer that would walk in was like, oh,
Idea.
they're a new customer, like, oh, they're a new customer, and then like you just get pulled in so many different directions. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have started to focus more, I don't want to say on the Soylent group, but like on more of that easy, it's going to be perfect kind of target market.
Yeah, I love that. And it's sort of like the value proposition is it's I'm thinking of it as like insurance. Like it's sort of like I like the likelihood of success that like the pants arrive and they fit me is high. I have
So
some
much higher.
certainty, they're seeking certainty, not necessarily novelty, right?
Right.
And that's really cool.
Yeah, we'll see. So we also we're
You
very
are a
focused on
fast
our brand.
company. You are officially a fast company. Congratulations.
This is really through our partnership with H&M. So we are trying to bring our tech, this idea of how we can build on demand
Mm-hmm.
to the bigger market.
Okay.
We love that we can control everything with our own brand, and there's so much more value capture with our brand, but we can make a bigger impact more quickly if we do collaborations. So we kind of have a mix.
Okay.
Some investors might say we're confused. I would say we are not confused. We are very focused on our brand, and we use select collaborations to elevate the brand and to increase awareness. So
I love
this has
that.
been,
That's
yeah,
going in my Series A pitch deck.
nice. Yeah, it's hard to like. There's never every company is going to go to market in a different way, and this has really been the best for us. One, it's been a learning for 2 years working with H&M. This is with their brand called Weekday, so it's not fast fashion per se, but because of the association with H&M, we start to get into that world a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's brought along a lot of connections, but also a lot of learnings on what it takes to partner with another company. It just takes a very long time to launch in the market. It took almost 2 years for us to launch, whereas at Unspun, we just did it and
Yeah.
yeah, let's try this on a few people and then let's launch and then let's make our first customers love us because it's not going to work the first time, but we're gonna like they're gonna become our best friends. We're gonna learn from each other, and I think that's been an awesome thing for us. Which Weekday and H&M, they can't do that, but we can take advantage of our small scale and being able to grow that way. But yeah, I've been really excited to bring this to other brands, but also in the next year other product categories. So we'll be looking at new things beyond jeans.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then this is just these are renderings. So these are, I guess this is like what this will be if someone chose, a high waist and a default hem and a slim fit with this wash. Like this is what an example of what it would look like.
Got it.
Some more examples. And then I briefly mentioned that this is some of the hardware tech that we have coming out. So we'll start to connect the dots where it goes from body scan and doesn't go to a cut and sew facility anymore. Instead, it goes straight to our machine and gets woven.
Amazing.
All right. So this is what we want the fashion industry to be, a circular life cycle. And I talked about yarn as like the input, and we see yarn as the input and also as the output to, you create a product with yarn. Why can't we go back to the yarn again as future input for other products?
Mm-hmm.
and this isn't possible with cut and sew, because you have a sheet of fabric, you chop it up into little pieces, stick it back together, and you just have a bunch of seams, you have a bunch of joints, and the it's essentially been ripped up already. You can't go back to the yarn state. So that's like our, in 5 to 10 years kind of vision,
Mm-hmm.
and something we've been prototyping that we're super excited about.
Yeah. That's interesting, and I'm sure I've seen machines that will take, let's say, ugly Christmas sweaters from, the Goodwill, and undo them, and then they'll like sell that as yarn, or sell that as reknit that into a scarf or something, for
Mhm.
example. But I can imagine once the fibers are on the length scale that it would be in jeans, for example, undoing the jeans and then redoing the jeans is a bigger challenge.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's not that much harder than what's done with the knitting. So
Okay.
I think it's, yeah, that they each have their own challenges. So with the knitting, you're going to end up with really crimped yarn because you have lots of loops, and
Right.
the yarn just starts to take on that form. With weaving, you don't have that same sort of crimp, and it's probably going to be a faster in general. So weaving is about 4 times faster than knitting.
Okay.
So the reversal process should, in our kind of experiments with it, should be also that much faster.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Cool.
yeah, just because of, so like, you think about the directional changes that it takes to knit something, you're like looping, 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 looping. And knitting is actually closer to 3D printing than weaving. Like
Okay.
knitting, you can really start with nothing and loop, 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 and then just like build those. It's almost like Z layers of loops.
Yeah.
But with weaving, you need some kind of like scaffold, and that's what the warp yarn is. You need that yarn that's either like on a flat loom, it would be, perpendicular to ground. On like um, other looms, it's just like straight up and down. Um, so it's something that you need to, because the idea of weaving is that you have like yarns that cross each other and hold and kind of lock in. With knitting, you just have lots of loops. So with knitting, because you have so many directional changes, it takes a while. With weaving, especially if you're going in a circle, it's just a very fast, like you're never really changing. You're always in a constant movement. You're never stopping.
Mm-hmm.
So it just ends up being a lot faster. But yeah, it's
Cool. I've never thought of like, I'm conceptualizing it as like the momentum of the process, right? It's just like to keep going and going and going. That's amazing. Cool. Well, I'm excited for this future,
we'll
the
we'll
new
see.
future
Yeah,
of the unspun fashion industry.
but it's about like the systems behind everything. I think it's awesome that there are sweaters, you can buy the yarn from it, but that's not like a bigger system. It's like that's a one-off kind of product. It doesn't solve the bigger problem. So I think it's going to be startups like Unspun or big brands that really start to solve it with pressure from policy. So
Yeah.
that's why I feel like consumers need to be putting pressure and encouraging companies to really be making this change, because companies exist only for the people who buy the stuff from the companies. So it's really
Right.
really up to you guys. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really beautiful. Okay, so I want to be respectful of Beth's time and kind of start to bring things to a close. I think we'll have time to get to a couple of the remaining questions from the audience. But before we go into those, um, I have a question for you, which is, I think, so one of the things that seems really exciting to me about this this model of built to order, or like grown to order, one on one, which is one of our partners, Evil Components, uses that. They say it's grown.
Oh,
It has
cool.
this very biomimetic kind of parts, and he likes to say they're grown to order. But what's cool about this is I think it's a really amazing opportunity for consumers to be kind of active and like co-creating the product and kind of express their individuality through that. And I know that that individuality and expression and diversity are like really important at Unspun. And I just kind of want to hear in your words, how do you think about um, like how do those values connect between the product, the service, the team? I mean, you talked a lot about interdisciplinary team, so that's sort of diverse in a technical sense, but I'd just love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on creating this product that fosters diversity, and obviously having diversity is one of your top values.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome way to put it, fostering diversity. Yeah, we the just the way that the industry has been set up over the past 50 years with mass manufacturing and sending product overseas has just worked our way out of any diversity that we would have had, any like, just because you're making cookie cutter product, you're making hundreds of thousands of a thing, so you just remove the diversity factor there. So by having MOQs of one, we start to introduce that possibility of this could actually be its own unique product. And every single product that we make, unless it's, you order two of your same jeans, every
Right.
product is absolutely unique because every person's pattern is unique. And something that we've found over the last 10 years of just like learning about the clothing industry and how it was set up was that sizes are discriminatory. Like the
Yeah.
size system, was there have been a few different instances of setting up the sizing system in the US, but mostly it's come from the need to produce army uniforms and uniforms for the military. And so it is taking from a very select group of people in the US and then building that system around them. So it took from the military. Like they did studies around 15,000 people. Well, I think it was fewer to start with like the Civil War, but then like, as you got more into like World War II, they were taking many thousands of people and measuring them and then setting up a standard of sorts around like, here are the kind of proportions and shapes that we're seeing. And then that's how the sizing system was built.
And what was the diversity of that pool of 15,000 people?
Well, of course, it was very male and white to start, and then they did another one to try to bring women into the fold in the late 30s, right before World War II, because women were starting to take the jobs and the men left to go to war. And for those jobs, they needed those cookie cutter like uniforms to wear. And those were like 15,000 white women. So it was very like, there are certain types of like body shapes and proportions that kind of they skew based on like race or gender, other like geography. Like there are sort of trends that way. It's not necessarily, you can't generalize, but you could say that someone skews a certain proportion based on where they live, for example.
Right.
So just by having that system, we have discriminated against certain types of people where they just won't find their
Mhm.
but then like even if you are like a white male, and there's still a chance that you're not going to find the right product because every single person is different. You can't replicate a person like for body shape. So I think that's something super exciting from like a sizing standpoint, but from a creation standpoint and getting new product, I think it's really exciting to have no inventory, have no product, and yet be able to, at the end of the day, have the possibility for more types of products than you would with our current mass manufacturing system, where you have to make product to begin with, and you're only going to have a certain you know, number of SKUs. But whereas like here, every product is its own SKU.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing. And I think one of the things that you got me thinking about in terms of so I think you could look at the sort of like demographic diversity of a sizing system, right? And so maybe even if I am whatever ethnically in the demographic that was set the sizes of the original 15,000 military uniforms or whatever, to your point, everyone's unique. And on top of that, part of why I sort of only realized this through our conversation, but it's like part of what isn't fun for me about fashion and like don't like clothes and like actually the holidays is like, I mean, come on, you're gonna get a bunch of clothes and you're not, I mean, don't tell my mom who might watch this replay, like what percentage of them I ever wear. But the thing that I immediately kind of clicked in my head is almost um, so regardless of who was sampled during the sizing system, the experience for the people who don't fit, right? And regardless of their ethnicity, age, whatever, just their body shape doesn't fit with this thing. It's almost this like, I mean, it's shame, right? It's like, oh, I don't like, and I've, I've experienced that with lots of clothes of like, oh, like this thing fits my cool friend and I want the cool thing. And like, it doesn't fit me. Or like, I, I can either get a jacket that's way too big for me or one that's way
Mhm.
too small for me. I mean, either uncomfortable or, it looks, and obviously this is what like a tailor would do in many situations, but it's like you're sort of building the tailor into the manufacturing process, and then the experience can be more joyful. Right? It's like I this was made for my body, and like maybe it's not 100% what I thought it would be when it comes out of the box, but it wasn't it wasn't designed for a size 32. It was designed for me. So I love that, and I'm sure that you guys will be massively successful, if only for that psychological shift of it just being more fun
Right.
to play with something that was designed for you and that you got to co-create.
Mhm. It's, yeah, you bring up so many great points that like we just the number of people, I think every person I talk to about size say they're too something, like, oh, I'm too tall, or my hips are too big, or my calves are too big, or I don't like, my ankles are too small. Like there's always a two in there, and I'm like,
Mhm.
why, what, like you are you, like there's nothing wrong with you, it's not you, it's the system, like. And I think it's going to be a little while before we realize that, but I'm hoping it'll be in the next 10 years that we just throw out that system, and just like appreciate that we just like that we have bodies to begin with.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. I'm so excited for what you're doing. So, hey, Beth, we've had such an amazing conversation, and as we I kind of want to leave it on this high note of like, positive co-creation of our own destiny. And I see here that you have a very special offering for the InventFM audience, at least through the end of the year. Do you want to maybe quickly share a little bit about that, and where the best place for everyone to find you and engage with Unspun and engage with you is?
Yeah, and I should have put my email here, I'm sorry about that. My
That's
email
okay.
is beth@unspun.io. And these, please feel free to get a gift card. It's a little bit late in the year. It's December 15th. So you have 10 days before Christmas, or, a few weeks before the holiday that you might celebrate this year.
Or maybe you're in the middle of it.
Maybe you're right in the middle and you're a little bit late. But these gift cards are digital, so they are instantaneous if you want them to be. But go to our website, unspun.io. Also didn't put that here. Unspun.io is the website.
We'll make sure it's in the show links, and
Yep.
here
Awesome.
live can add the .io.
Yeah. And the thing that I really love about, I'm not, gift cards have a bad reputation for obvious reasons. It's like a very easy gift, like didn't know what to get you, here's a gift card. But what I love about Unspun gift cards is that there's nothing more unique than like a gift card for custom fit jeans. It's just like a very,
For you, yeah.
so if you want to try to save the environment and not ship anything this year, I hear shipping is super behind and really expensive right now anyway, so might as well just send a digital thing.
Okay, that's amazing. So everyone can send their digital gift card to their loved one to co-create their jeans destiny of the future with Unspun, and their vision for additive manufacturing of mass customized products and saving the environment too, and creating this amazing closed loop feedback cycle. It's beautiful. I'm sold.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for having me. Are you going to have someone come in and interview you for one of these shows?
Maybe. I think that would be fun. There's a few things I would love to do that and have someone interview me. And I think that we will, there's a few shows that we have planned. Actually, next week, I'm going to do a show off our invention of our 3D printed holiday ornaments. So that one will be in collaboration with Entopology, but a little bit more about Polyspectra than, in that, how we went from idea to design to manufacturing, and both, highly technical in that it's advanced manufacturing, and also highly fun in that it's just a holiday ornament. so yeah, we'll be sharing some of our ideas and opportunities and stuff from time to time on the show. So thanks.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited for what you're building with this.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, Beth, with that, let's say goodbye to our live audience. Everybody, write down your InventFM coupon code and head over to unspun.io. And yeah, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks for your questions.